Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Hello, my name is Richard Davis, also known as Sibling Ayin, and I'm here to do the Thelemic Order's celebration of the Thelemic Holy season, March 26th reading today. We're going to be reading Liber Ash, and we'll also be talking a bit about the Hebrew letter Ayin, which means I and corresponds to the devil card in the Book of Thoth in the Thoth Tarot. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into my talk with some just opening remarks here. We'll share my screen here. It says host disabled attendee screen sharing. Is there a way to change that, Stephanie? If not, I can still read, but is there a way to check the setting on that?
Give me 1 sec, I'll fix it.
Okay.
Okay, you should be able to do it now.
Yep, perfect, yep, no problem. This happened the last time I was on Zoom too. I don't know, it always does that, but I should be okay now. Let me go ahead and hit this. And now I think my screen is being shared. And can you see my screen?
Yes, indeed.
Great, okay, so these are just some notes I've prepared. The first part is just talking about Ayin. It corresponds in Liber 777, the key scale, 26. And so if you look at the bullets I have here, that's Ayin spelled out as the word, Ayin, Yod, and Nun final. And then some other things that it corresponds to the ah sound, or usually written in English as the letter O. But also when you see Crowley talking about this letter, you'll see that, like, for example, in the Book of Lies, the shape of it also factors in. So it's the shape of an O is a circle, the number 0, the egg shape, the shape of omega, like the arched curve, those kinds of things, and just the circle shape itself. One of the things that Crowley has also written about the shape of omega is that kind of is like symbolic of Nuit, with her arching over, you know, the stele of revealing, the way she's usually depicted in Egyptian art. So those are just kind of things to keep in mind, this idea of the circle, the egg, the 0, the letter O, omega, all of those things. And then it goes back to the shape of an eye, Ayin meaning eye itself. And that also relates to the Eye of Horus. This letter also corresponds to the constellation and zodiac sign of Capricornus. It's the pathway that connects 6 to 8, Tiferet and Hod. So the Sun and Mercury on the Tree of Life. It's Atu 15, the 15th tarot trump, which is the devil, and Crowley writes that the devil is, you know, the blind for Baphomet and Pan and that kind of thing. Some other correspondences from 777 are the color black, Kem and Set from the Egyptian gods, the perfected man, Osar and Asi, or Osiris and Isis, the phallus and vulva Sati, the spine, the eye of Hor, the buttocks and anus. So if you look at these are kind of like pairings of, like, you know, the phallus and vulva, Osiris and Isis, and these parts of the body and that kind of thing. And so we'll notice in some of Crowley's other erotic writing that he uses the word eye of Hor as a metaphor for the anus, and talking about sodomy and anal sex and that kind of thing. So that's an important thing to keep in mind in terms of the sex magic associations of this letter and this card and this current that is associated with the 15th key of the tarot. So the lingam and yoni, Pan, Priapus, erect Hermes and Bacchus, Pan, Vesta, Bacchus, the goat and ass are the animals, Indian hemp, orchis root, thistle, black diamond, the secret force and lamp are the magic weapons, musk, civet, orchis, and it also corresponds to the witch's Sabbath, so-called, and the evil eye. And I think that's very interesting when you think about the fact that the central ritual of the OTO is the Gnostic Mass, and it's numbered Liber 15. This is Tarot Trump 15. So it's funny because it has the imagery of this Christian Mass, yet if you look at what Crowley codes it in 777, it corresponds to the witch's Sabbath and, you know, all of the mysticism around that, with there being the goat in the form of a devil and that kind of thing. So it's also kind of the devil's mass. If you look at just the numbering on who are we, you know, celebrating here, and the idea that Baphomet is the egregore of the Holy Order of the OTO, the idol of the Templars, but Baphomet is Pan, is, you know, all of these different things is the devil. And so in another correspondence on my bullets here is that in Eliphas Levi's Doctrine and Ritual of High Magic, the 15th chapter is also called the Sabbath of the Sorcerers. So we've got the Witch's Sabbath in 777. Levi, who Crowley believed he was a reincarnation of Levi, that was his last life before this, his current one, his most recent one. The Sabbath of the Sorcerers is the name of the 15th chapter in that book, and then Crowley writes Liber 15, Book 15, the Gnostic Mass. So I think it's important to realize the imagery and the importance of the devil in terms of what it meant to Crowley and how we have come to understand it within Thelema. So this is the Thoth Tarot card. We've got Ayin and Capricorn glyphs at the bottom on either side of the devil. It's pretty obvious. You know, we've got the third eye between the eyes of the goat, and you've got the two testicles at the bottom and this giant phallus going up into a ring. And if you look at the ring that the phallus is going into, it's not Vesca Pisces shaped, it's circular shaped, and that'll come in important later. When Crowley talks about a phallus penetrating a circle, he's usually referring to sodomy and the anus, versus if the phallus is penetrating the Vesca, he's talking about more vaginal sex magic intercourse and things like that. So on this card, the shape of the orifice that it's going into is very much circular shape. So I think that's important to keep in mind in terms of the mysteries of this card and what the sex magic involved with it is. So anyway, I put some other quotes in here. This serpent, this is from Liber A'ash, Book 4, Part 3, Chapter 21 of Black Magic. This serpent, Satan, is not the enemy of man, but he who made gods of our race. Knowing good and evil, he bade know thyself and taught initiation. So he's the initiator. You know? He is the devil of the Book of Thoth, and his emblem is Baphomet, the androgyne who is the hieroglyph of arcane perfection. The number of his Atu is 15, which is Yod He. So when you look in Hebrew Gematria, Yod is 10 and He is 5. So 10 and 5 add to 15. And Yod He is, the Yod is like the little dot is Hadit, and He, like I was talking about, the shape of He, Crowley writes, is like Nuit. So Yod He is Nuit and Hadit combined. They make 15. The monogram of the eternal, the father, one with the mother. And so the Hebrew word for father, one way is Ab, A-B. I put the Hebrew letters there. And the Hebrew word for mother is Ma. M-A. And so, for example, Liber Abba, that this book comes from, kind of refers to the idea of the father, Abraham, that kind of thing. So Ab is the father, Ma is the mother, and the word son is Ben. So, like, for example, we get the word Benjamin is another name that means son. And so you have the father, the mother, and the son, and I'll get to that in a minute, but how those three things come together. So you have the virgin seed, Yod, or the sperm, that kind of thing. One with the all-containing space, He. So if you look at the shape of the space, that's like Nuit. It's the arching shape of the letter of He. And so they combine to make Ben, which is the sun, the circle with a dot in it. You have the Yod in the center, and the all-containing space around it create the sun. That's the monogram of the eternal. And jumping down a little bit, if you look at the ABMN I have there, the reason I bring this up is when you combine the letters that spell father, mother, and son, you have father is AB, mother is MA, and son is BN. So A has the gematria of 1, B has the gematria of 2, Mem has the gematria of 40, and Nun, N, has the gematria of 50. And those four letters that create the father, the mother, and the son add to 93. So again, like all of this stuff is embedded into the symbolism of the devil and Baphomet. And so I think it's important to know this, why he wrote this out. And my notes, I hope, make it a little easier to pop out as you read those lines. So anyway, he says, because of the fact that he's Yod and He, he is therefore life and love, right? Because Hadit is life and Nuit is love. So the Yod is life and the He is love. They equal 15. But moreover, his letter is Ayin, the eye, which is the eye of Horus, so therefore he is light. So he's the light of Horus, right? And that the eye can see. So then, and his zodiacal image is Capricornus, that leaping goat whose attribute is liberty. So within this card of the devil and Baphomet and all of this, you have life, light, love, and liberty. All four of those are contained in the glyphs of this symbol. So I think it's just very important to know that and to look at, like, what are the, the principles of the Gnostic Catholic Church Crowley, envisioned. What are the principles of the order that he envisioned, and how can we embody those principles and bring them into manifestation? And how does the symbolism of this card and this concept of the devil and Baphomet embody that egregore, if that makes sense? So anyway, I'm going to jump down a little further in my notes here. So this is actually the rebus. This is an alchemy, the idea of the divine androgyne, the male and the female merging into one. It's interesting because if you look, Crowley chose the colors for the priest is red, the priestess is blue, and then the crown and the chalice here are yellow, kind of the colors of the deacon. But anyway, these are just, alchemical, symbols and that kind of thing. But one of the quotes I found in the Vision and the Voice commentary, so in the Equinox 4, number 2, one of Crowley's comments on the second ether is that Babylon is the feminine or androgyne equivalent, not merely the complement of Pan. So picking that apart, what's the difference between being the equivalent of something and the complement of something? So if we think husband and wife, we could say, oh, well, he's the man of the relationship and she's his complement. But when we say that Pan is this side of one of it, and Babylon is the other equivalent of it, you would say that, you know, both of these take on this androgyne concept. So in other words, like in terms of the archetypes within Thelema, we easily think, you know, Pan and Baphomet, we think of Pan as the masculine, we think of him as a lustful phallic male god, and we think of Babylon as the feminine. But what Crowley's saying in this comment in terms of his vision and his experience of Babylon is that she is the feminine or androgyne equivalent of Pan, and Pan is the masculine or androgyne equivalent of Babylon. It needs to go both ways. So I think that it's important that we look at who these two figures are, at least in terms of if we want to understand how Crowley understood them. I think everybody is going to have their own impression of them, but that quote really jumped out at me when I found it and made me reflect on like how I see Baphomet, how I see Babylon, and what their connection is in terms of what they represent and how they connect with us spiritually. So another quote from the Book of Lies, Crowley says, the brothers of AA are women, the aspirants to AA are men. So if you start out as an aspirant, you may have in your mind that I'm a man. You know, I don't change anything. I'll be a man my whole life. I'm eternally a man. But what he says is the brothers of AA are women. And the goal of AA is to get to your holy guardian angel and then to cross the abyss and get to the city of the pyramids with Babylon and drip, you know, give her every drop of your blood, every ounce of your being. And by doing that, it also, I think, includes sacrificing your false sense of gender. I think that that's what Crowley meant about crossing the abyss. I think that the priestess card that cuts through the middle pillar across the abyss is also symbolic of this idea that you leave behind every shred of duality down to what you think you are in terms of a binary gender. But that's just my 2 cents on how to interpret that. The name of that chapter is called The Oyster. It's chapter 3, and 3 is in Hebrew, Gemel. Gemel corresponds to the priestess, and oysters are in nature a species that changes sexes back and forth between male and female during their lifetime. So I think it's interesting he called it the oyster, made that really curious statement about the brothers of AA being women, and numbered it number 3, chose that which would correspond to Gemel and the priestess card. But anyway, so he says, this is another quote from the holy books, they must have gone further yet beyond the fundamental opposition of the sexes. The male must have completed himself and become androgyne, the female and become gynander. This incompleteness imprisons the soul. To think I'm not woman but man or vice versa is to limit oneself, to set a bar to one's motion. It is the root of the shutting up which culminates in becoming a Mary and Violet or a Black Brother. So talking about the AA, that's where we get those terms, Mary and Violet, Black Brother. Black Brother is someone who has actually made a lot of progress in AA, but fails in crossing the abyss. And Crowley says the thing that is the root of their failure is in one quote, I am not woman but man or vice versa. If you don't transcend that duality of the sex you have in your head, you fail. It's like, that's what Crowley says anyway. Maybe your mileage may vary, but if we're going on Thelema and what Crowley wrote and his experience, apparently that's the breaking point. The determining factor boils down to gender. So it's funny that we have all these politics around the Gnostic Mass and how we're dragging in gender politics, Well, actually, no, these are very spiritual concepts that are serious that people need to be thinking about. And I think that these quotes kind of jump out in terms of serious aspirants needing to do the work in order to do what he said, to complete themselves, becoming androgyne, becoming gynander, because that incompleteness imprisons the soul. Crowley says a lot about the fact that God is above sex. So when you proclaim there is no part of me that is not of the gods, we're not talking about binary gendered male and female gods at that point. And I think that's kind of important to note, and goes back to the message of the devil card in Baphomet and the androgyne and Babylon as the androgyne. So she being the goal of crossing the abyss to get to her, you know, to get to that city of the pyramids and into her arms. So the quote at the bottom of the image of the rebus here we have, he, Horus, rules the present period of 2,000 years beginning in 1904. Everywhere his government is taking root. Observe for yourselves the decay of the sense of sin, the growth of innocence and irresponsibility, the strange modifications of the reproductive instinct with a tendency to become bisexual or epicene. This is Crowley's introduction to the Book of the Law. There's like a section on part 4, the new Aeon. And it's interesting that he says, you know, because these are childlike things, innocence, irresponsibility, but children are also epicene in the sense that they are prepubescent. They're not fully masculine or feminine yet. So Horus is not, unlike Isis and Osiris, who are very clearly female and male, masculine and feminine, matriarch and patriarch. Horus is androgyne. Horus is epicene. Horus is prepubescent. He's the child, and so that's the nature of this new eon. And Crowley writing with a tendency to become bisexual, I think that what he's saying is if we're only looking at things through the binary of sexuality, that men and women are heterosexual, men and women are homosexual, and men and women with women and men are bisexual. The nature of this new eon is neither heterosexual or homosexual, but bisexual. And I would say the term that we use, actually, I think bisexual and pansexual are very similar terms. I personally use pansexual, partly because I was involved with the early development of pansexual communities on social media back in the early 2000s, but also because of my love for Baphomet and the idea that he corresponds to Pan, and pansexual just kind of matches my nature in terms of sexuality. But it would still be the same idea, because bisexuality does not imply just a binary. It means a person that is attracted to genders other than their own. So it's very, there's a lot of similarities. A lot of the people in the bisexual and pansexual communities have differing definitions of it, but overall, they're not limited. I think that both of these, Crowley was right in terms of prophesizing that this is going to be the way that the human reproductive instinct, as he said, is evolving. So I would say bisexual and pansexuality is something that is happening because I think people, when you identify spiritually with the androgyne, you're no longer seeing yourself as I am man and I'm only attracted to woman, or I am man and I'm only attracted to man. You begin to say I'm androgyne and I see the androgyne spirit in all other people. So their physical body that they have is not a barrier to my attraction and my sexuality. And our, you know, in Thelema, sex magic and the sex drive is very much like, you know, the root of the true will. So I think that it's just eliminating another restriction in this eon, that the imaginary boundaries we put up around gender are starting to erode, and Crowley foresaw that coming. But anyway, let me jump back into my notes here. These are just some pictures from another lecture I did of Shiva Parvati, Shiva's androgyne form of the masculine and feminine as well, some representations in art of that. So this is our reading of Liber Ash, and Crowley describes Liber Ash with this description. He says, this book analyzes the nature of the creative magical force in man, explains how to awaken it, how to use it, and indicates the general as well as the particular objects to be gained thereby. It is sexual magic veiled in symbolism. So, Liber Ash, Capricorni Pneumatici, subfigure 370, publication in Class A. So here we go. So starting from line 0. Gnarled oak of God, in thy branches is the lightning nested, above thee hangs the eyeless hawk. Thou art blasted and black, supremely solitary in that heath of scrub. Up, the ruddy clouds hang over thee. It is the storm. There is a flaming gash in the sky. Up. Thou art tossed about in the grip of the storm for an eon and an eon and an eon. But thou givest not thy sap, thou fallest not. Only in the end shalt thou give up thy sap, when thy great God Fiat is enthroned on the day of Be With Us. For 2 things are done and a 3rd thing is begun. Isis and Osiris are given over to incest and adultery. Horus leaps up thrice armed from the womb of his mother. Harpocrates, his twin, is hidden within him. Set is his holy covenant, that he shall display in the great day of Mot. That is being interpreted, the master of the temple of AA, whose name is Truth. Now in this is the magical power known. It is like the oak that hardens itself and bears up against the storm. It is weather-beaten and scarred and confident like a sea captain. Also it straineth like a hound in the leash. It hath pride and great subtlety, yea, and glee also. Let the magus act thus in his conjuration. Let him sit and conjure. Let him draw himself together in that forcefulness. Let him rise neck swollen and straining. Let him dash back the hood from his head and fix his basilisk eye upon the sigil of the demon. Then let him sway the force of him to and fro like a satyr in silence until the word burst from his throat. Then let him not fall exhausted, although he might have been 10,000-fold the human, but that which floodeth him is the infinite mercy of the genetrix of the universe, whereof he is the vessel. Nor do thou deceive thyself. It is easy to tell the live force from the dead matter. It is no easier to tell the live snake from the dead snake. Also, concerning vows, be obstinate and be not obstinate. Understand that the yielding of the yoni is one with the lengthening of the lingam. Thou art both these, and thy vow is but the rustling of the wind on Mount Meru. Now shalt thou adore me, who am the eye and the tooth, the goat of the spirit, the Lord of creation. I am the eye in the triangle, the silver star that ye adore. I am Baphomet. That is the eightfold word that shall be equilibrated with the three. There is no act or passion that shall not be a hymn in mine honor. All holy things and all symbolic things shall be my sacraments. These animals are sacred unto me, the goat and the duck and the ass and the gazelle, the man, the woman, and the child. All corpses are sacred unto me. They shall not be touched save in mine Eucharist. All lonely places are sacred unto me. Where one man gathereth himself together in my name, there will I leap forth in the midst of him. I am the hideous God, and who mastereth me is uglier than I. Yet I give more than Bacchus and Apollo. My gifts exceed the olive and the horse. Who worshipeth me must worship me with many rites. I am concealed with all concealments. When the most holy ancient one is stripped and driven through the marketplace, I am still secret and apart. Whom I love, I chastise with many rods. All things are sacred to me. No thing is sacred from me, for there is no holiness where I am not. Fear not when I fall in the fury of the storm, for mine acorns are blown afar by the wind, and verily I shall rise again, and my children about me, so that we shall uplift our forest in eternity. Eternity is the storm that covereth me. I am existence, the existence that existeth, not saved through its own existence, that is beyond the existence of existences, and rooted deeper than the no-thing tree in the land of no thing. Now therefore thou knowest when I am within thee, when my hood is spread over thy skull, when my might is more than the penned Indus and resistless as the giant glacier. For as thou art before a lewd woman in thy nakedness in the bazaar, sucked up by her slyness and smiles, so art thou holy and no more in part before the symbol of the beloved, though it be but a Pisasha or a Yantra or a Deva. And in all shalt thou create the infinite bliss and the next link of the infinite chain. This chain reaches from eternity to eternity, ever in triangles. Is not my symbol a triangle? Ever in circles, is not the symbol of the beloved a circle? Therein is all progress base illusion, for every circle is alike and every triangle alike. But the progress is progress, and progress is rapture, constant, dazzling, showers of light, waves of dew, flames of the hair of the great goddess, flowers of the roses that are about her neck. Amen. Therefore, lift up thyself as I am lifted up. Hold thyself in as I am master to accomplish. At the end, be the end far distant as the stars that lie in the navel of Nuit. Do thou slay thyself as I at the end am slain, in the death that is life, in the peace that is mother of war, in the darkness that holds light in his hand, as a harlot that plucks a jewel from her nostrils. So therefore the beginning is delight, and the end is delight, and delight is in the midst, even as the Indus is water in the cavern of the glacier, and water among the greater hills and the lesser hills, and through the ramparts of the hills, and through the plains, and water at the mouth thereof, when it leaps forth into the mighty sea, yea, into the mighty sea. So that's where Liber Ash ends. And one of Marcelo Mata's commentaries talks about Liber Ash as one of the chapters he flags for serious students. And I took a little bit of the verses that Mata laid out as the ones to focus on, verses 14 through 24, and put some notes in. So let me see if I can find, so for example, over here, verse 17 we had just read, there's these symbols he has. Thou shalt adore me, who am the I, which the I is Ayin. So he's saying, I am Ayin, I'm this I, the devil, and the tooth, Shin. So then we have the goat, which is, again, Trump 15, the devil Baphomet, the goat of the spirit. So Shin is the card of Atu 20, the Aeon or Horus, and so it corresponds to the letter Shin. So these two things just went hand in hand, the eye and the tooth, the goat of the spirit. The Lord of creation, I am the eye in the triangle, and the silver star that ye adore. And ye, by the way, the Mata made an interesting observation. If you take the English letters ye and change them to Hebrew, usually Y is Yod, which is 10, and E is usually translated back to H, which is hey. So you have ye is Yod hey. So references to this word ye, Mata interpreted as also being like the glyph of 15 or Trump 15, the devil. And so it's interesting too, when we look at like the Gnostic Mass, we say like the priest says, thou art that and that am I. Like, and to me, the Gnostic Mass, the priestess, you're practically talking to Baphomet. Even James Wasserman in To Perfect This Feast says that the priestess on the altar takes on the embodiment of Baphomet, because Baphomet's the idol of the Templars. But if you listen to the dialogue, the priest is basically saying, I'm worshiping and adoring you, and there's this ecstasy and passion in it, but thou art that and that am I. Like, you know, there's this connection of like, you have this intense love for this part of you that is still a connected piece of who you are. So it's interesting that ye adore is still 15, like, you know, XV, like the Roman numeral 15 is adoring the thing that which it is, if that makes sense. Hopefully that isn't too confusing, but I thought that was a kind of neat observation that Mata had made that kind of stuck out to me, since we see the word ye in the Book of the Law a lot. So he says that he's the tooth, right? So Shin, if you spell it out in full, Shin Yod Nun adds up to 360, and one of the 7/7 correspondences of 360 is the Messiah. So if we go back to that verse, to what he said, I am the eye and the tooth, he basically says like, I'm the devil and the Messiah, you know, because we're looking what the numbers add up to. So because Shin is a code word for, you know, it corresponds to the spirit and fire, and one of the equal words is Messiah. So this is a quote from chapter 61, the Fool's Knot, which is another thing in a lot of the notes about the 11th degree. A lot of them point to chapter 61, that it's an important chapter for understanding the mystery of the 11th degree. But anyway, it says the doctrine is that the great work should be accomplished without creating new karma. For the letter N, so Nun, the fish, which corresponds to the death card, the letter N, the fish, the vesica, that shape I was talking about, like the shape of a lamen, the womb breeds, whereas the eye of Horus, the circle, O, the anus, does not. Or if it does so, it breeds, according to the Turkish tradition, a Messiah. So if we're looking at the sex magic symbolism of this, Nun, the fish, that kind of thing, the vesica shape, because the vesica is the shape of a fish, like those Jesus fish that you see on cars. It's the same concept. The shape of the OTO lamen, same thing, it's the fish. Those breed children, right? But Crowley is saying the eye of Horus does not breed children, but according to this Turkish tradition, what he's referring to, the nature of the act of like magic with that part breeds a Messiah. So the idea of the Shin, right? So just looking back at the verse, now shalt thou adore me, who am the eye and the tooth, Ayin and Shin, the goat of the spirit, the devil and the Eon, the Lord of creation, I am the eye and the triangle, the silver star that ye adore. Silver star that ye adore, also like Astrum Argentum, the AA, that translates to silver star. So this is who you're adoring. This is who you are aspiring as an aspirant towards. So you're finding all of these kind of like coded symbolism in this too. So anyway, he says, I'm going to jump down to verse 18, where this is part of what Marcelo Mata suggested focusing on in Liber Ash. It says, I am Baphomet. That is the eightfold word. And Crowley's written in other places that it's an eightfold word because there's 8 letters in it, B-A-P-H-O-M-E-T, when written in English. that shall be equilibrated with the 3. So if you add the triune, the 3, the supernal triad to the 8, you get 11, which is Nuit's number 5 plus 6, the pentagram and the hexagram, the microcosm with the macrocosm, the great work, 56, you know, all of those fun magical things about 11, the 11 letters in abrahadabra, da 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 da. But anyway, so the Baphomet is the eightfold word that adds to the 3 to create the magic number 11. There is no act or passion that shall not be a hymn in mine honor. All holy things and all symbolic things shall be my sacraments. These animals are sacred unto me, the goat and the duck, and the ass and the gazelle, the man, the woman, and the child. So I think it's cool that we have the man, the woman, and the child. If we look at like the archetypes of Osiris, Isis, and Horus, like all of them are embodied in this. He didn't choose just one. All 3 are sacred unto this devil archetype, right? So then he also says verses 34 through 36 are for serious students' attention, and so we'll revisiting those. For as thou art before a lewd woman in thy nakedness in the bazaar, sucked up by her slyness and smiles, so art thou holy and no more in part before the symbol of the beloved, though it be but a Pisasha or a Yantra or a Deva, and in all shalt thou create the infinite bliss and the next link of the infinite chain. This chain reaches from eternity to eternity, ever in triangles. Is not my symbol a triangle? And written in the Book of Lies, chapter 69, to succeed or suck eggs, there's this description of the holy hexagram, and the descending red triangle is the tongue of Horus. So Horus, in addition to the upright triangle being, you know, the eye in the triangle is the eye of Horus. So you've got the tongue of Horus and the eye of Horus, but triangles are the symbols of Horus in that sense. And ever in circles is not the symbol of the beloved, a circle, and Nuit is typically what we think of when we think of the circle. Again, the letter O is the English equivalent of Ayin, all having that circular shape. So, and also, as I mentioned, the shape of the orifice is also circular shape. It's something that can go into a circle for sex magic, like symbolism. So therein is all progress, base illusion, for every circle is alike and every triangle alike. So we're at the 8:30 mark. These are some of the other chapters in Liber Aleph that Marcelo Mata said were worthy of students' attention. So I want to read them pretty quickly. I think we've got time to do it. So these, he said, chapters 173 through 76 and chapter 185 in Liber Aleph are ones that the student should pay attention to. So this one, 173, is called Of the Paths of Death and the Devil, Arcana of the Terror of the RC Fraternity. It shall profit thee much, O my son, or I heir, that I instruct thee in the mysteries of the paths of Nun and Ayin, that in our Rhoda are figured in the Atu called Death, and that called the Devil. Those are O and N. O is the devil, and N is death. So others may have some additional symbolism on those 2 letters, O and N, those 2 pathways of death and the devil. Of these, Nun joineth the sun with Venus, so Tifereth with Netzach, and is referred to Scorpio in the zodiac. This path is perilous, for it seeketh the level, and may abase thee, except thou take heed unto the going. Of its 3 modes, the Scorpio destroyeth himself as if it were a type of animal pleasure. Next, the serpent is proper to the works of change or magic, yet is he poisonous also unless thou hast wit to enchant him. Lastly, the eagle is subtlest in this sort, so that this path is proper to a transcendental labor. Yet all these are in the way of death, so that thy wand is dissolved and corroded in the waters of the cup, and must be renewed by virtue of thy nature in its course. For fire is extinguished by water, but upon earth it burneth freely and is inflamed by the wind. Understand also that which is written concerning the Vesca, that it is the mother, giving ease, sleep, and death, which consolations are eschewed by the true man or hero. So the symbols that he mentions, mentions here, the scorpion, the serpent, and the eagle are the 3 different forms of the Scorpio card. So sometimes when you see like the cherubims, you see like the man, the lion, the bull, and the eagle corresponds to Scorpio, and that represents on the cauldron the vapors coming off the waters, because, you know, Scorpio being a water sign. So the scorpion is the lowest form, the serpent is the middle form, kind of moving and snaking through the cauldron, and the eagle are the vapors, like the wings lifting off the water of that card. And in the Thoth Tarot card, that's the imagery that's on it as well. So I just mentioned that since those three are mentioned in this, that's where that symbolism is alluding to, is the tarot card, the three animals on it. So 174, further concerning these paths. This is again from Liber Aleph. Now, the path of Ayin is a link between Mercury and the sun. So it's between Hod and Tifereth. It's the opposite mirror of death on the tree of life. They are a mirror image on either side of the tree. And in the zodiac importeth the goat. So it's importing Capricorn. This goat is called also strength. That's actually because the Hebrew word Oz, like as in Liber A'ash, means goat, but the Hebrew word Oz also means strength. So this is an allusion to that. I might put a note in that later for this. The goat is also called strength, Oz, and standeth in the meridian at the sunrise of spring. And it is his nature to leap upon the mountains. So they also, in Book of Thoth, he says, upon the summits of the earth, which is a word in the Gnostic Mass. I lead thee to the east, I set thee upon the summit of the earth. Crowley uses this term, summit of the earth, to talk about Capricorn and the free spirit of liberty and the nature of the goat jumping upon the mountains. So again, you're leading that spirit, and that again is another hidden symbol, I think, of Baphomet in the imagery of the Gnostic Mass, Liber 15. But anyway, his nature is to leap upon the mountains, the summits of the earth. So therefore he is, and it is his nature to leap upon the mountains. He is a symbol of true magic, and his name is Baphomet. Wherefore did I design him as an Atu of Thoth, the 15th, and put his image in the front of my book, The Ritual of High Magic, which was the second part of my thesis for the grade of Major Adept, when I was clothed about with the body of Alphonse Louis Constant. So, as you know, Alphonse Louis Constant, one of the Gnostic saints mentioned in the Gnostic Mass, is Eliphas Levi's full name. Whoops, what is going on here? I'm trying to get... Oh, I'll fix that later. There's a typo. So he's talking about the image of Baphomet, the famous image, which I have over here, appears in that book, and Crowley's talking about it in his past life, that he put this in the front of that book, you know, as the symbol of the work. So now the goat flieth not as doth the eagle, but consider this also, that it is the true nature of man to dwell upon the earth, so that his flights are oft but fantasy. Yet the eagle also is bound to this eyrie, nor feedeth upon air. Therefore this goat, making each leap with fervor, yet all times secure in his own element, is a true hieroglyph of the magician. Mark also his path showeth one continuous in exaltation upon a throne, and so is it the formula of the man as the other was of the woman. So what's interesting, you have the formula of the man, the formula of the woman, and we were talking about the Vesca of the death card, the figure, which the word noon and fish and the Vesca shape and that kind of thing. And for sex magic purposes, he's talking about the yoni or the vagina and that thing. Whereas this, he says, is the formula of the man, and we're talking about the letter O in the shape of a circle. Now, what's funny is I don't think that these are split rigidly by gender, because if we're just being blunt, everybody has an anus, and so this part of the body exists, and its utilization for sex magic is something anyone is capable of. That's why when people look at Crowley's diaries, they're like, I thought 11th degree was the gay one, and then it's like, why does he say that he did 11th degree with women and things like that? I think that if you break your mind free of only thinking in terms of sex organs, and you look at all of the different phalanges and phalluses of the body and orifices of the body, you can really get creative with how you can do sex magic. But we'll jump into that for another lecture. So this one, chapter 175, De Oculo Horror, the Eye of Horror, says, I say furthermore that this path is of the circle and of the eye of Horus that sleepeth not, but is vigilant. The circle is all perfect, equal every way, but the Vesca hath bitter need and seeketh thy medicine. That is of right compounded for high purpose, to ease her infirmity. Thus is thy will frustrated and thy mind distracted, and thy work lamed if it be not brought to naught. Also thy puissance and thine art is minished by a full moiety, as I do esteem it. But the eye of Horus hath no need, and is free in his will, not seeking a level or requiring a medicine, and is fit and worthy to be the companion and the ally of thee in thy work, as a friend to thee, not mistress and not slave, that seek ever with slyness and deceit to encompass their own ends. There is moreover a reason in physics for my word. Study thou this matter in the laws of the changes of nature. For things unlike do in their marriage produce a child. So things that are heterosexual, that are unlike, produce a child, which is relatively stable and resisteth change. But things like, so things that are homosexual or the same in this sense, but things like increase mutually the potential of their particular natures. Howbeit, each path has his own use, and thou, being instructed in all ways, choose thine with discretion. So he talks about this idea of is fit and worthy to be the companion and the ally of thee in thy work, as a friend to thee. If you look at what Crowley wrote in Liber Abba, book 4, on the formula of Alim, he talks about this Hebrew word kadosh that means holy, and says that it was conferred upon the adepts who practiced the 11th degree. And it's this idea that if you were to, you know, defile it is an abomination. And I think he's kind of coding the idea that sodomy in some ways is sacred sex, as long as like it's being done for holy purposes and following that instinct in terms of true will. And so if you look at what he's describing here, he also, in Crowley on Christ, I think it's Liber 888, he also talks about Kadosh again, and he talks about Jesus and John and their relationship, and he compares like David and Jonathan and all these other figures. They have this loving connection of people who are same-sex males in these examples, but he implies that they had a deeper spiritual connection, and implies that it's sexual in nature. He also uses things like the Holy Spirit as you know, code for semen and that kind of thing, but also just any kind of, I think, sexual energy that's discharged and shared with a person embodies that Holy Spirit in a sense. And I think as we look into some of his writings where those things are written, it's interesting to contemplate like what the implications are of them. Why would these types of magic exist? What's their utility? What's their function? Why did he hold them so highly? Because he obviously like signed things as Baphomet 11th degree. He was very proud to be the one who was sort of inventing and innovating this degree as a development of the sex magic of the OTO. But it's ultimately unfinished work. And so I think that you know, this note in particular, the Eye of Horus chapter, he's writing to his magical son, Frater Akkad, you know, this advice, and basically says, you know, hey, find a friend, you know, and see where that goes. But again, that'll be another talk. I've been doing a lot of research on it, but it's interesting that it kind of pops up here for contemplation on like how that may have a connection to the devil archetype in Baphomet, the idea of the Templars, etc. Oh, because actually when we talk about the Templars, the Knights Kadosh, Kadosh, again, I mean, even in Freemasonry, that's the word. It means holy one, but historically it also meant temple prostitutes, particularly male temple prostitutes. There were also female ones. I think the female is slightly variant like Katesh or Kadesha or something like that. But also, again, they were like typically like sacred temple prostitute priestesses in that sense. And so they all have that root word of Kadosh, meaning holy. But there's an extra layer of symbolism. And I don't know if the people who developed Freemasonry were also trying to code hidden sex magic symbolism into things like naming the Scottish Rite degrees Knights Kadosh. But Crowley certainly knew the word Kadosh. It is like explicit code word for what he refers to when he's talking about two men having a bond of intimate love and 11th degree nature. So this is from Mata's Commentaries of El. I think I'm coming up on my last 10 minutes, so I'm going to jump this part. One little thing he talks about, though, it's the love is the law, love under will, nor let the fools mistake love, for they are love and love. There is the dove and there is the serpent. Choose ye well. So I've mentioned that ye part adds to 15. He, my prophet, hath chosen, knowing the law of the fortress and the great mystery of the house of God. All these old letters of my book are aright, but Zadi is not the star. This also is secret. My prophet shall reveal it to the wise. I'm going to jump down and say here, So he has a note that says, it's toward the bottom of the page, dove, symbol of heterosexual love. Serpent, symbol of homosexual love. Thelemites must choose well. And the word well, if you break it down, you have 6, 6, 5, 30, 30, because Vav and Vav make a W, so 6, 6. E as hey, which is the number 5, and then 2 L's, which are 30, 30, adds to 77. And 77 is the word Oz or goat. So choose ye well. Ye, as I said, was 15, and well actually adds up to 77. A goat, the devil, also, ye equals Yod plus hey equals 15, which is 3 times 5, which suggests the path of Cheth, because Cheth is 8, so you've got 5 and 3 add to 8. The chariot, which is the link between Binah and Gevurah, which crosses the abyss leading to Babylon, but also 3 times 5 in terms of the Empress coupled with the Hierophant, those are the tarot trumps, and 15, the devil again, Yod plus Hey is the Hermit plus the star, also 1 plus 5 equals 6, the sun. Choose implies that a choice must be made and a mistake avoided. The stars also have tribes and nations. See Liber 418, chapter 77 of the Liber 333, the Book of Lies. The general key is that you should practice homosexuality only with a fellow Thelemite. The house of God, in a sense, is the phallus. 15, the devil, but also is Pe 80, the blasted tower. Still, in another sense, the phallus being God, the house of God is the Katis. So that cuts off, but I might go into a deeper talk later on some of Mada's interesting commentaries. So this is a quote from Crowley's new comment on all verse 33, chapter 3, verse 22, and to me it corresponds to the Gnostic Church of light, life, love, and liberty. What he mentioned. So he says, there are to be no regular temples of Nuith and Hadit, for they are incommensurables and absolutes. Our religion, therefore, for the people is the cult of the sun, who is our particular star of the body of Nuit, from whom, in the strictest scientific sense, come this earth, a chilled spark of him, and all our light and life. His vice-regent and representative in the animal kingdom is his cognate symbol, the phallus, representing love and liberty. So if we talk about, just looking, I highlighted the words light and life, we're talking about our religion, is the cult of the sun, because the sun is the source of light and life. Everything that exists on this planet gets its light from the sun, and our life is an emanation of the light radiating from that source. And so what he's saying is his vice regent is, as a symbol, is the phallus. And this is not, a phallus is not exclusive to men. Men are just one expression of the phallus. Women are phalluses too, and men are also the yoni, like, complement as well. Like, that's kind of the irony of the Eye of Horus and that part of the body that has been so taboo, that's, I think, gradually people are realizing and lightening up about it as our society progresses in terms of sexual liberty. But anyway, so the phallus is the expression of love and liberty. So the phallus is the sex drive. It's an emanation of the sun's light and life, and its expression on earth is through our sex instinct, and symbolized by the phallus and the idea of going and projecting and penetrating and moving into something that you are in love with and passionate about and free to do. So anyway, Ra-Hoor-Khuit, like all true gods, is therefore a solar phallic deity. So when everyone says solar phallic, we're not just talking about he's not a patriarchal god, though. He's an androgyne god. He's epicene. He's a child. Osiris is a patriarchal god. Isis is a matriarchal god. Ra-Hoor-Khuit is a solar phallic god, but just as the Japanese sun goddess Amaterasu, she's a solar phallic goddess, you know, because she's solar and she's phallic in nature. All of the attributes of her, like she has a sword, is like one of her symbols. It's the imperial treasures. So Ra-Hoor-Khuit, like all true gods, is therefore a solar phallic deity, but we regard him as he is in truth eternal. The solar phallic deities of the old eons, such as Osiris, Christ, Hiram, Adonis, Hercules, etc., were supposed through our ignorance of the cosmos to die and rise again. Thus we celebrated rites of crucifixion and so on, which have now become meaningless. Ra-Hoor-Khuit is the crowned and conquering child. This is also a reference to the crowned and conquering child in ourselves, our own personal God. Except ye become as little children, said Christ, ye shall not enter into the kingdom of God. The kingdom of Malkuth, the virgin bride, and the child is the dwarf self, the phallic consciousness, which is the true life of man beyond his veils of incarnation. So that's the comment on chapter 3, verse 22. New comment, also seen in Laws for All. So let's talk about the devil really fast. This is again from Liber A'ash, chapter 21. Before leaving the subject of black magic, one may touch lightly on the question of pacts with the devil. The devil does not exist. It is a false name invented by the Black Brothers, so people still caught in duality, to imply a unity in their ignorant muddle of dispersions. A devil who had unity would be a god. So is Baphomet not a devil with every possible form of unity? So Baphomet looks demonic, and people will, persecute you over your devotion and to your god. But this god, Baphomet, is a god with unity no matter how much he appears like the archetype of the devil. So a devil does not exist because a devil with unity would be a god. So the devil is historically the god of any people that one personally dislikes. This has led to so much confusion of thought that the beast 666 has preferred to let names stand as they are and to proclaim simply that Iawaz, the solar phallic hermetic Lucifer, is his own holy guardian angel. And the devil, Satan, or Hadith, of our particular unit of the starry universe, this serpent, Satan, is not the enemy of man, but he who made gods of our race, knowing good and evil. He bade know thyself. So he wasn't caught in the duality of one or the other. Knowing good and evil, he bade know thyself, and taught initiation. He is the devil of the Book of Thoth, and his emblem is Baphomet, the androgyne, who is the hieroglyph of arcane perfection. The number of his Atu is 15, which is Yod-He, the monogram of the eternal, the Father one with the Mother, the virgin seed, one with all-containing space. He is therefore life and love, but moreover, his letter is Ayin, the eye. He is light, and his zodiacal image is Capricornus, that leaping goat whose attribute is liberty. So, jumping down, this is the description of the devil card from the Book of Thoth. I'm going to breeze through this very fast. This card is attributed to the Liber Ayin, which means an eye, and it refers to Capricornus in the zodiac. In the dark ages of Christianity, it was completely misunderstood. Elvis Levi studied it very deeply because of its connection with ceremonial magic, his favorite subject. And he redrew it, identifying it with Baphomet, the ass-headed idol of the temple. The early Christians also were accused of worshiping an ass or an ass-headed god. But at this time, archaeological research has not yet gone very far. The nature of Baphomet was not fully understood. At least he succeeded in identifying the goat portrayed upon the card with Pan. I'm not going to read all of this because I need to jump ahead, and a lot of us have the Book of Thoth. So I would recommend reading that chapter if you're interested in more of this. So kind of goes on for quite a bit. It is important to notice that some other correspondences, the 3 vowel consonants of the Hebrew alphabet, Aleph, Yod, and Ayin, these 3 letters form the sacred name of God, Iao. These are Atu 19, the hermit, Atu 0, the fool, and Atu 15, the devil. Thus, offer a threefold explanation of the male creative energy, but this card especially represents the masculine energy at its most masculine. Saturn, the ruler, is Set, the ass-headed god of the Egyptian deserts. He is the god of the south. The name refers to all gods containing these consonants, such as Shaitan or Satan. I'm going to jump ahead. Note that the Shabbatai, I do want to read this on the Witches' Sabbath. The Old Testament is full of attacks upon kings who celebrated worship in high places. So like Walpurgisnacht, for instance, takes place on mountains. This, although Zion itself was a mountain, this feeling persisted even to the days of the Witches' Sabbath, held if possible on a desolate summit, but if none were available, at least in a wild spot uncontaminated by the artfulness of men. Note that Shabbatai, the sphere of Saturn, is the Sabbath. Historically, the animus against witches pertains to the fear of the Jews, whose rites, supplanted by the Christian forms of magic, had become mysterious and terrible. Panic suggestion that Christian children were stolen, sacrificed, and eaten. The belief persists to this day. In every symbol of this card, there's the allusion to the highest things and most remote. Even the horns of the goat are spiral to represent the movement of the all-pervading energy. Zoroaster defines God as having a spiral force. Compare the more recent, if less profound writings of Einstein. Compare Saturn at one end of the seven sacred wanderers with the moon at the other, the aged man and the young girl. They are linked as no other two planets. And each contains in itself the extremes of its own idea. So, as we're coming up on the end of the hour, a lot of people know that I, when I was doing my novice work after becoming an ordained deacon in Ecclesia Gnostica Catholica, was a novice priestess for over 2 years. And a part of the reason I chose to be a priestess, this image of Baphomet here, I chose the backdrop of the stars and the blue of the priestess and the red and yellow of the sun, the colors of the priest kind of blurring into the purple in the center of Baphomet, the merging of the two into one. But the reason I chose to be a priestess was because I wasn't wanting to solely be a priestess. I wanted to do this magical work with Liber 15 being numbered after the androgyny Baphomet. And they gave me the opportunity, but I had to choose one. I had to pick one and stick with it. So I said, can I choose to be a priestess then? And my public masses will be as a priestess. And they checked and gave me confirmation. And for 2 years at William Blake Lodge, as many folks attending this know, I served as a priestess and was very proud of that work. And then suddenly in 2019, after NotoCon, they changed the policies. They restricted me being a priestess. I could only, do private masses, and everybody's restricted to that. And it was just discriminatory. And obviously I was very hurt and outraged by it, but it is what it is. And I'm thankful now my work in the Thelemic Order with Ecclesia Gnostica Heterodoxa has an office of the priestex, which is those who choose to be ordained in that office can serve in any role in our masses and our other sacramental rites. And we particularly have the triune mass, which involves the role of the priestex in either role. And I'm able to now serve as I had willed to do in the past. So I just wanted to bring that up because 215, this card, this chapter, everything really resonates with me. I chose the name Ayin at the time I became a novice priestess because it really embodied the nature of the spiritual work I was hoping to do in terms of reaching that level of completion. To be able to serve not just in one role or 4 out of 5 roles, but all 5 roles in the Gnostic Mass to be a complete being, if that makes sense. Crowley himself wrote in the footnote, all of their officers are parts of the priest himself. So to me, it always made sense that, well, then everybody should be all 5 parts. Why wouldn't you be? Like if they're all parts of one whole, all of them are aspects of Hadith, then you need mastery in all of them. But anyway, this on the side, I don't have time to read it. It's called Musings on Nothingness, and it is from a book called What is Gender Nihilism, a reader that I've got at an anarchist bookstore in Philadelphia called The Wooden Shoe. But it's really great. It talks about the idea. It says sexual intercourse is whatever takes place between a phallus and an orifice. Remark 1, understood energetically, a phallus is whatever has an explosive or repulsive energy, and an orifice is whatever has an implosive or attractive energy. Understood materially, a phallus is whatever protrudes, and the orifice is whatever consumes. And kind of goes on for a bit. It's pretty vulgar. It uses some C words for describing genitalia. I would be a little uncomfortable reading it, but for those on the video, if you want to pause the video and read this, I'm just going to show what's on the screen. But these, I think, are just kind of neat. This is written in, I think, 2012, and the book was published in 2018. But I just think that it was really interesting and really applies to some of the philosophy of sex magic. So I wanted to include that here for those who might be interested in reading it. Obviously, I don't have time to read all of it because we are at the end of the hour. And with that, I will go back to chat. Oops. Okay, can you see me?
Yep.
Okay. All right, well, we're at 9:03, so I think maybe this would be a good spot to end the video. So I just want to say thank you guys for listening in, and I look forward to celebrating the holy season again next year. One of my friends brought up today, so today was Stephanie's anniversary, I think 15th anniversary of her baptism, and it was my friend Chris Harden's 6th anniversary of his annihilation, his 4th and PI initiation in OTO. And we found out, I didn't realize this, but he discovered today, March 26th, is also, today is the 1099th anniversary of Monsieur Al-Aj's execution, who's a figure that Crowley really admired for dying for his cause and, knowing and preaching about the God within himself, and unfortunately was condemned for blasphemy for doing that. So, but I think it's neat that a year from now we'll be celebrating, that'll be the 2000-year anniversary. So it's a reminder, like a time capsule. A year from now, we really need to have a big celebration on this day, the Devil's Day, for our friend's 2000th anniversary of his martyrdom. But with that, I'll go ahead and wrap up this talk. So thank you again for listening in. We'll do some chat afterwards, but we'll cut the recording just so we can talk freely and dig into some cool questions. So again, happy holy season, everyone. Love is the law, love under will. Thank you.